Senators have been playing some pretty good hockey as of late. We're joined by Ross Levitan, the co-host of Locked On Senators, to talk about their recent improved play on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to the Locked On NHL Podcast Monday edition. Gil Martin, as always, great to be with you and great to welcome to the show the co-host of Locked On Ottawa Senators, Ross Levitan. Ross, great to have you here.
Jill, always a pleasure, man. Love chatting hockey with you, even though your Islanders did take care of the Senators last month.
Hey, we had to beat somebody. I mean, it's been that kind of a season for the Islanders. But, you know, the Senators have been playing some pretty good hockey as of late. What has been, in your mind, over the last 10, 11 games, what's been the difference for this team?
Yeah, obviously November was tough. They went 1-11-1 in November. So, yeah, I'll say it again. November was tough. But there were certainly games, especially at the end of October, that they deserved to win. They were in them right until the very end, and we're a goalie-friendly show, so I hate to do this, but when all three goalies that have played in the year have under 900 save percentages, you're not going to win very many games, as simple as that. And with Matt Murray, the $6 million man, he's locked up for 3 years, right? 2 after this one. And you just need great goaltending from him, and he's provided that now in 2 straight starts. Even though if you look at the numbers, yeah, they let in 4 goals to the Oilers. You could say maybe they didn't deserve to win that after 2 periods. They go in with a 2-goal deficit, but he made these key saves at the right time, especially against Calgary. So if I had to break it into one spot, it would be goaltending. Anton Forsberg went on a 5-1 stretch through the start to middle of December, and then Matt Murray. Take away the Toronto game. The game they played on New Year's Day, 6-0. That should never have even been played. I don't know why it was. It was the Sens' only game in an 18-day stretch with injuries. COVID was running through the team. So outside of that effort or lack thereof, goaltending's been a huge improvement over time.
You know, the Senators have played fewer games than any team except the Islanders.
Yes, sir.
How is this team holding together through all these postponements and COVID delays and all of the other uncertainties facing them this year?
The real uncertainty was in November. I brought up their record, but they should have had games postponed back then. They were playing with 10 guys out of the lineup. They were icing an AHL roster, and it was just loss after loss after loss. The game where they finally pulled the plug for a week afterwards, it was a 4-0 shutout loss on home ice against the Calgary Flames. There was nobody left to play, and it was so flat. It was so hard to watch. So from that standpoint, then you're looking at it around the league. You're like, oh, now they're postponing games for everyone else. And the Islanders were right there with it. That's why they're so low in terms of games played, right? So you know what I'm talking about there, where you're just wondering, like, who's going to be the next man up. But now that things have settled down, and there's only been 2 players right now in Ottawa who haven't been on the COVID list. So once you're on it, then you don't have to test for 90 days. Therefore, now you can start getting the ball rolling. And with this young team, they're just excited to come to the rink every day. There's been some mic'd ups that the Senators have posted in practice, and the guys are loose. They're having a great time. And when their leaders are 22 and 21 years old, that's going to bring that exuberance that sometimes maybe a veteran team with that length of time off, you could start going through the motions a little bit. But this team is just enthusiastic. They're fun to watch and easy to root for as well. Now, the power play and the penalty kill, of course, have to be mentioned with this turnaround as well. They've killed off 25 of the last 27 penalty kills. So if that keeps up, man, that's a recipe for success.
And the power play now ranked 14th in the league, and that's pretty impressive, especially when you consider that Ottawa is near the bottom of the league in goals scored.
Yes, certainly is. Now, maybe a part of that being the lack of games played, because there have been some high-scoring games that they've come out on the wrong side of as well. Like, they put up a 5 spot against the Colorado Avalanche and lost. They put up a 5 spot against the Washington Capitals and lost that game. But you're right. And all the damages from their first unit. These are names that the average hockey fan should start getting used to sooner rather than later. Their first power play unit. Everybody knows Thomas Chabot by now. He would have been easily on Team Canada for this Olympics had the NHL players gone. So everyone knows him. Everyone knows Brady Tkaczuk, obviously his father having what should be a Hall of Fame career. And then it becomes a little more unknown after that. Now, Tim Stützle, third overall pick, he's starting to get his feet wet. It was a year ago yesterday that he played his first NHL game. Now he's played about 85. He's starting to get to that next level. Drake Batherson's a guy who I'd love to expand on a little later. And then Josh Norris, 2 of those power play goals against Edmonton. He opened the scoring and he scores the game winner. So their first power play unit, they move the puck around so well, and each job is so well defined. Batherson's the playmaker. Chabot opens up space, carries the puck up. Stützle, another on the half wall. He mixes it up. And then when you've got Brady Tkaczuk in front of the net, he causes havoc. And Josh Norris, you can see his one-timer coming. It's just like that Ovechkin, that Stamkos. He stands in that spot. It's coming, but there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, that's the most frustrating thing for an opposing goalie and an opposing team, no doubt. Norris, 16 goals leading the team, but only 8 assists. What's with the Cy Young Award consideration here?
Yeah, I think it's just being the right place at the right time. It's not like you look at him during the game and you're hoping that he's going to pass the puck more, anything like that. There's such a great chemistry brewing between Drake Batherson and Josh Norris that speaks to the development program the Sens are putting in place now. Those two were line mates all year long in Belleville last year in the AHL, where Josh Norris, 2 years ago, the last full season pre-COVID, although it did stop a little short. That being said, Josh Norris wins AHL Rookie of the Year last year, put up 31 goals, and Drake Batherson he's just an assist machine. So it's that yin and yang, and it's very rare that it's the centerman who's doing the goal scoring versus the winger who's more of a playmaker, play driver. But that's just the way these guys are rolling, and it's working for them. Out of those 16 goals, Drake Batherson's assisted on 13 of them and has the primary assist on 11 of them. So that in itself just kind of explains to you how well these guys feed off each other in the offensive zone. And is there a first line in the league where nobody's 23 years old? Because that in itself is pretty impressive.
Yeah, not in this league. Maybe in maybe in juniors or in the AHL,
in college.
Not in this league. Talk to me a little bit more about Batherson. You mentioned before we went on air that he is the all-star representative for the Sens. Other than the point total, which anyone can look at online or in the box score, what makes him so special? What is it that makes him an all-star?
Well, he's built like a power forward, and he's got hands like a playmaker. That's kind of how I describe it. He's got great patience, elite hockey IQ. That would be my number one attribute for him. He thinks the game so well. He's smooth. He's a right shot who just finds the right areas on the ice. Now, his story is unbelievable. He was passed over in the 2016 draft. Nobody wanted him. He was 5'10". Now he's 6'3". So talk about a growth spurt afterwards. But then he gets selected by Ottawa in the 4th round. Ottawa's chief amateur scout is from the Maritimes. They found him in Cape Breton. He was doing all right. And then after they select him, he just goes wild. 7 goals in 7 games at the World Juniors for Team Canada. They win gold in Buffalo in 2018. Then 2 years in the American Hockey League. He goes to the AHL All-Star game. Say what you want about the level of competition there, but he scored 5 goals, won AHL All-Star MVP, and he helped Belleville what would have been 2 great opportunities to go on a Calder Cup run, but both years cut short due to COVID and things out of his control. So that in itself was super unfortunate. Then as a 21-year-old, he comes up and he's feeling ready at this point. Has a great rookie season last year, doesn't look back. And now he is just primed to continue to break out. And Ottawa, I don't know what it is. Maybe you can help me out. These Maritime kids, they're just signing for team-friendly deals. Marchand, everyone talks about him with the Boston Bruins. Nate McKinnon might be the most value contract in the National Hockey League. Sidney Crosby could have asked for the maximum. He signed for 8.7. Common denominator, the reason I bring up those elite names is Drake Batherson trains with those guys in the offseason. And as a young kid, getting to be around that greatness day in and day out in an environment like Halifax, I think that can only help this guy's development. And I think you're seeing the fruits of that labor out on the ice.
No question. And sometimes you learn by example. You see what the best players do, and you can sort of pick up on that. And it doesn't even have to be stated to you. You just watch it and you pick it up. And that's a great thing. Russ, I know you have a very special guest coming up on today's episode of Locked On Sens, so why don't you tell us about that?
Well, it's hilarious because people have fun at the Senators' expense. And I don't think any least of which is the reason that the Sens geographically are right in between the two biggest markets in the NHL in Montreal and Toronto. We're just nuzzled in there, super passionate fan base. And when either a prospect writer rates them too low, whatever it is, Sens fans are passionate and quick to jump and defend their team. So on Saturday and leading up to Saturday against the Edmonton Oilers, this was a team who's really struggling. Now they only have 2 wins in their last 14 games. So on paper, and I don't blame people from afar being like, this is an easy game for the Oilers. So Paul Bissonnette, spitting chicklets, he's TNT, NHL and TNT, big name in the industry. He's going on and on about how he's putting his parents' 401k, which, I mean, he was wrong there because in Canada it's an RRSP. But that aside, he's putting that on the Oilers to win and McDavid to get a point. And I don't blame him on that because McDavid set the single season record for most points against Ottawa. He had 21 points against Ottawa last year. That in itself is wild. The Oilers went 9-0 against Ottawa and no loser points. 9-0 for Ottawa against Edmonton. So all those things, you boil them into a pot, and Biz says, this is the lock. He said, you're a moron if you don't bet this. Well, the Oilers were up 3-1 going into the third period. Ottawa outscores them 5-1 in the third period. 5-1. So I just tweeted out at Sens Central, just having some fun, saying, hey, at Biz, I tagged him. I said, I think you owe Sens Army an explanation. So you want to come on LOSP? DM to discuss. And I just having some fun at his expense. And next thing you know, I got a DM from Biz saying, hey, free tonight. I'd love to jump on with you. So I got to give him credit for that. This guy's got over 1 million followers. He doesn't need to give anyone the time of day. And for him to come on, face the music, he was on for 34 minutes with us. So pretty much the whole episode of Locked On Senators today. I thought that was pretty cool.
Absolutely. Give him credit for being a stand-up guy and
facing the music.
Absolutely. Ross, why don't you tell our listeners where they could find you on social media and where they could find the podcast?
For sure. Yeah, you can find the podcast anywhere you find your Locked On NHL podcast. So Apple, Google Play, Spotify, the list goes on and on. We're also on YouTube. If you want to see our ugly mugs as we're going over the day-to-day of the Ottawa Senators, touch on around the league as well. And of course, there's plenty happening now that these games that were postponed, they have to get made up. So this is where Locked On, it has their bread and butter. It's your team every day, not only for the Senators, the Islanders, like you do such a great job on, Jill, the national show, Locked On NHL. Like, this is our bread and butter. They're going to be playing every other day from now until May. So whether you're whatever team piques your interest today, if your fantasy playoffs are coming up and you need to check in, make sure you're locked on all, 33 shows? How many shows we have on the network now? At
least 33.
Yeah.
I think there's 35 actually.
Wow. See, that's the Locked On difference, man. So we're just trying to do our part, have some fun, keep conversations light, make sure we're having laughs, because if we're not enjoying doing it, I think the listeners can hear it at home. So we just try to keep it going, and we're looking at a team that's finished at the bottom of the standings now 4 years in a row. So obviously self-deprecation is a premium on our show.
Nowhere to go but up, though.
Or you could stay stagnant. That's the only problem, which is what I found out the hard way the last few years. But hey, the pieces are there. I told you about the first power play unit. Like, there are players coming, and if there's any American listeners, you're going to be seeing a lot of Jake Sanderson at the Olympics from North Dakota. He's the next big thing coming up in the Ottawa pipeline. So yeah, there's lots to look forward to, but fans until then can just point to 11 wins, and they've got 7 wins in their last 11 games, but they have 11 on the season. So do some quick math. They were few and far between before that.
Yeah, as an Islander, fan and person covering them, I can relate. We had an 11-game winless streak in November or into early December. So
yeah, I'm pretty sure that Ottawa was the slump buster game for you there.
I think you're right.
You're welcome.
All right, Ross Levitan, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure, Jill. Anytime.
All right.